The bell above the door chimed softly as another customer entered Willow Cafe, but Lena Carter barely noticed. The morning rush had turned the cozy cafe into a whirlwind of clinking cups, murmured orders, and the scent of freshly ground coffee. She balanced 3 mugs in one hand, a tray of croissants in the other, and smiled through the exhaustion that came with double shifts. To the regulars, Lena was the heart of the place, warm, kind, and always ready with an extra sugar packet or a listening ear. But behind her gentle smile, she carried a quiet loneliness she rarely showed. Life hadn't gone the way she planned. College dreams had been replaced with bills and night shifts after her mother's illness. Still, she found comfort in small things, fresh muffins, soft music, and the occasional stranger who smiled back. That morning, a stranger did more than that. He walked in quietly, almost hesitantly. Tall, elegant, dressed in a charcoal suit that looked too refined for the neighborhood cafe. He carried a presence that turned heads without him even trying. His dark hair was flecked with silver, and his sharp jawline softened only by the sadness in his eyes. Lena noticed the way his gaze lingered, not on his phone or the menu, but on the world outside the window, as if he were watching something that only he could see. When she approached, pad in hand, she gave her usual polite smile. "Good morning. What can I get for you?" He turned his head, and time seemed to stop. For a long moment, he said nothing. His breath hitched, eyes searching her face with disbelief. "Sir," Lena prompted gently. His voice came out rough, strained. "I'm sorry. You just..." He looked down, almost ashamed of his reaction. "You remind me of someone I once knew." There was something in the way he said someone, like the word itself was a wound that hadn't healed. Lena nodded softly, not pressing further. "Coffee, then." He gave a small, grateful smile. "Black, no sugar." When she brought the cup over, she found him still staring, not at her, but at the empty seat across from him. She caught the faintest glimmer of a gold wedding ring still resting on his hand. She didn't know then that his name was Ethan Gray, the reclusive CEO of Grayson Holdings, a man whose business empire was matched only by the tragedies that had nearly broken him. 3 years ago, he'd lost his wife, Isabel, in a car accident that had also left him temporarily blind. Though his sight had returned, something inside him never did. From that day on, Ethan came back. Not every day, but often enough that the staff started whispering. He always sat in the same booth, ordered the same coffee, and stayed longer than anyone else, lost in his thoughts. Over time, conversations began. At first, it was small talk. "Busy day," he'd ask, or, "You always smile when you bring coffee. Why?" And Lena would laugh softly. "Because no one likes grumpy coffee." But as the days passed, their exchanges deepened. She told him about her mother's health, about how she'd taken this job to make ends meet. He told her about his daughter, Emma, who was 9 and still talked to her mother's photo every night. One day, Lena noticed a sketchbook beside his cup. "You draw?" she asked. Ethan hesitated. "I used to. Isabel loved my sketches. I stopped when he trailed off." Lena didn't push. She simply said, "Maybe one day, you'll start again." For her, that night, after closing, she found herself thinking about him. About his quiet grief, his gentleness, and the way he always thanked her like it meant something more than manners. Then, one stormy evening near closing time, Ethan came in drenched, without his usual calm. His shirt clung to him, his hair was soaked, and his hands trembled slightly as he sat down. "Ethan?" Lena asked, worry tightening her voice. He looked up at her with eyes full of something she couldn't name, fear, desperation, and longing all at once. "Lena, I need to ask you something." "Of course." She grabbed a towel from the counter and handed it to him. "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "Tomorrow is my wedding anniversary." Her heart sank. "Oh, my daughter, Emma, she planned a dinner. She wants to celebrate her mother's memory." His voice cracked. "But every year, I end up breaking down. I can't do it again. Not in front of her. I don't want her to think her father is weak." Lena's chest tightened. "What do you need me to do?" He swallowed hard. "I need you to come with me. Just for one evening. Pretend to be my date. To sit beside me, to smile, to help me get through it." "For Emma's sake." Lena froze. "Ethan, I don't think." "I know it sounds strange," he interrupted softly. But when you're around, she smiles. You remind her of Isabel. You remind me of her. His eyes glistened. Please, Lena, just for one day. For a long time, she didn't speak. Rain pattered against the windows. Her hands trembled slightly as she stared at him, this powerful man, brought to his knees by grief. Finally, she whispered, just one day. He nodded, eyes pleading. One day. And though her heart warned her against stepping into someone else's pain, Lena found herself saying the words that would change both their lives. The next evening, Lena Carter stood before the mirror in her small apartment, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the soft blue gown Ethan had sent earlier that morning. It wasn't extravagant, simple silk that flowed like water, but it felt like stepping into another world. A world she didn't belong to. She barely recognized the woman staring back at her. No apron, no coffee stains, no weary circles under her eyes. Just Lena. Soft curls framing her face, nervous eyes, and a fragile kind of beauty she hadn't seen in herself for a long time. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. I'll be waiting outside at 7. She took one last deep breath before stepping into the night. Ethan's car, a sleek black sedan, was parked under a street lamp. When she opened the door, he turned, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to stop. He looked immaculate, but more than that, alive. His usual cold composure was replaced by something gentler, almost uncertain. His gaze lingered on her face as if afraid to blink. You look. He caught himself before finishing, his throat tightening. Beautiful. Isabel would have loved that dress. Lena smiled softly. You must have great taste then. The air between them warmed slightly, the kind of comfort that grows between two broken people learning to breathe again. The Grand Arcadia Hotel shimmered with elegance. Crystal chandeliers bathed the ballroom in gold light, and the soft melody of a violin floated through the air. It was an intimate dinner, just close family and friends to honor the memory of Ethan's late wife. As they entered, whispers followed them. People turned, curious, confused. Ethan Gray, who hadn't brought anyone to an event in 3 years, was walking hand in hand with a woman no one knew. He ignored the stares. For once, he didn't care what anyone thought. When his daughter Emma spotted them, her eyes widened. She was small and delicate, with curls that matched her mother's, wearing a white dress sprinkled with tiny pearls. She ran toward her father, clutching a tiny flower bracelet in her hand. Daddy, she beamed, then stopped, staring up at Lena. The room went silent for a moment. Ethan knelt down beside her, bracing himself. Emma, sweetheart, this is Miss Lena. She's a friend. Emma studied her for a long moment, her young eyes filled with an innocence adults often lose. Then she whispered softly, you look like Mommy. Lena's heart ached. She knelt down, meeting the little girl's gaze. She must have been very beautiful, then. Emma smiled. A small, trembling smile, and placed the flower bracelet on Lena's wrist. She'd like you. Across the room, Ethan's mother quietly dabbed her eyes. Even she could feel the shift, the quiet warmth that had been missing for so long. Dinner passed in gentle conversation and soft laughter. For the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel suffocated by memories. He laughed when Emma made a joke, listened as Lena shared a funny cafe story, and caught himself watching her more than once. Her grace, her patience, her ability to bring light into a room without even trying. When the host proposed a toast, to love that never dies, Ethan's fingers tightened around his glass. He expected the pain to rise, the old guilt, the loneliness, but it didn't. Instead, when he glanced at Lena, she offered a reassuring smile, small but steady. And just like that, the grief didn't feel so heavy anymore. After dinner, they stepped outside into the soft glow of the city lights. The night air smelled faintly of rain. Ethan loosened his tie, exhaling as though he'd just run a marathon. You did amazing in there, Lena said quietly. He chuckled, shaking his head. I barely made it through the speech. If you hadn't been there, I don't think I would have managed at all. She tilted her head. You would've. You're stronger than you think. Ethan turned to her then, his expression raw, vulnerable. You gave me something I thought I'd never feel again. Lena frowned slightly. What's that? Peace. His voice was barely above a whisper. Just Peace. For a long moment, they stood there, the world around them fading into a hush. The sound of rain began softly, tiny drops tapping the pavement. Lena smiled. Looks like the rain found us again. Ethan looked up, then back at her. Maybe it's not the rain this time, he said softly. Maybe it's a sign. She laughed quietly, the sound like sunlight breaking through clouds. A sign of what? That one day might not be enough. Lena's breath caught. She should have looked away, should have reminded herself this was all pretend, but something in his eyes told her this moment was real. The rain fell harder, soaking them both. Yet neither moved. I don't know what happens next, Ethan admitted. But for the first time in years, I want to find out. Lena's voice trembled. Then maybe we start with one more day. He smiled. A real smile, the first in a long, long time. And as they stood there in the rain, two hearts that had long been buried beneath loss began to beat in rhythm again, slowly, quietly, beautifully alive. All right, I'll go. Ethan exhaled shakily, as if he'd been holding his breath for years. Thank you. As he left that night, she watched him disappear into the rain, unaware that this, one day, would become the beginning of something neither of them expected, something like healing.